Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dead Money Podcast with Dan Arfin. I was thinking how my name could have been anything else in the world. It could have been Harry Jones, but it's not. It's Dan Arfin. Although I guess it doesn't really matter what my name is, only what I do. And what I do is I play poker. And a few other things. But okay, we're going to continue on now with some hand histories from last week. Had a pretty aggravating day against the whale the day before. Kept making big hands against him. They went nowhere. He somehow kept clicking fold, but so it goes. On to the next one. I had a very swingy day in my next session at the Wynn. And all day long it was filled with action, interesting decisions. You sort of wish every day could be like that because then the time will go by very quickly, but it's not. So poker's just really boring sometimes. I never get bored talking about it, but playing? Well, anyway, I started out on a bit of a roll. I wasn't winning as much as it seemed like I was, but I was playing well in the early going. I was winning like every pot I was in. That's a good thing. I was getting value when I wanted. I was getting folds when I wanted. But nothing was too dramatic. But that actually reminds me of something. A reg asked me last year, he said, would you rather win 10 small pots or one big one, provided that they add up to the same amounts? And I instantly said, I was like, oh, a big pot, without a doubt. I was like, you pay way less rake and you're not tipping on as many pots. And monetarily, that still makes sense. But there is actually some value in exchange for paying that extra rake in a pot rake game, and that is you get to at least feel like you're competing, because it gets to be such a mind fuck when you go hours at a time without ever winning a hand, and then all of a sudden, bam, just missiles collide, and before you know it, you're dragging in a huge pot, and that feels great. It's very cathartic, but it's also nice not having to go through that long stretch first where you just feel like the only reason you're there is to lose. And like you're not even really competing. You're just getting boned. But anyway, so the game is good. And this reg opens to 15 from middle position and a really big fish calls the button. I 3-bet to 75 from the big blind with pocket kings. The reg calls only and we're heads up. Flop is Jack 7-3 Rainbow. I bet 90 and he calls. This reg and I, we have some history. Although I think more importantly, he's just seen me do a wide variety of things with a wide variety of hands versus a wide variety of people. Turn is another 7 and it was another heart. Obviously that could be trouble, but I really didn't think so. I mean, I didn't expect this guy to have too much 7x when he calls the 3-bet with the button still behind him, even if the button is a big fish. And I've been telling myself recently to just try and look for 3 streets more often when I have these really big overpairs. I mean, oftentimes the run out will either deter you from that or just the player will because you're concerned he's going to fold. So I often find myself checking flop or turn when I'm out of position because of how often it ends up being that 2 streets of value is the most you're going to get. But I also don't want to start like over-checking, you know? And I don't expect this guy to bet anything worse than kings if I do check the turn. Although I guess he might bet queens, but whatever. I bet again. 255, and he calls. And just the way he called it suggested that he wasn't thinking that he has anything to think about yet. The river made the backdoor flush. It was a 4. And I had the king of hearts too, but it was going to be quite difficult for him to have a flush because the jack was a heart. So the only flush combination he can have was probably going to be ace-3 of hearts or maybe 6-5 of hearts since that hand flopped a gut shot to the nuts and the backdoor flush draw. And since he probably won't have a 7, I mean, there's not much else for me to be afraid of besides the really nutted hands, which is jacks, 3s, or quad 7s. I guess I should figure pocket queens is in there, along with a bunch of different Jack X hands. But he knows I'm willing to bluff, so I go for the third street. I bet 450 into 855, a little over half pot. And he gives me a slight nit roll with the 7-5 of diamonds. Okay, now this guy's a friendly guy. I don't know if he's a part-time player or a full-time player. I mean, I don't know what his deal is. I'm guessing he wins something, but I don't know. I mean, what I do know is some of these regs who go in there and expect to be winning players, whether they are or not, are such whales with their pre-flop ranges. It's unbelievable. Now, I mean, I can understand this coming from a pure fish. You expect those things. You count on it. But whenever a reg does something like this, it's just like, you call yourself a thinking player. These people overestimate the EV to so many hands in so many spots in so many ways, and they just have no idea how much money they're torching because all they think about is the jackpot scenario. What's going to happen if this hand sneakily materializes into something huge? They don't think about the overall expected value of this hand and how often it's going to end up in a very uncomfortable spot. So you wonder sometimes just what the hell are they thinking, but I'll tell you what he's thinking. He's thinking he's got this really big fish on the button, and he thinks he needs to play just because of that. And he opened this hand, I think he was in the low jack, which is way too fucking loose for 7-5 suited. And then he calls this 3-bet on top of it, and it's not like this guy doesn't respect me. So he's just thinking two things. It's just, oh, well, this guy, he can 3-bet light, so I need to defend, plus I got a huge fish on the button. Yes, he's on the button. That means you're hoping to go three ways with 7-5 suited, stuck in the middle, and you think this is going to end well enough for you often enough that this is fucking okay? All right, glad you think so. So just like that, I lost just about everything I had won to that point. And since I was on the subject before of would I rather win one big pot instead of a bunch of little ones, well, I'll say this as well. I'd probably just lose one really big pot instead of 10 little ones. I mean, it's always unnerving and like a bit shocking whenever you get crunched all at once, but I'd rather just get it over with. You know, just like I'd rather get shot in the head than get stabbed 15 times. So if you're going to fuck me, just do it all at once. I don't need death by 1,000 cuts, but, you know, we don't have a choice in the matter. But all right, game on. 10 minutes later, we level up, and now I got aces. Under the gun opens to 15, and I 3-bet to 50, and he calls. Now, my opponent this time was this European. He looked fairly young. And he had actually already 3-bet twice and then tripled it off, bluffing, and was caught both times. Once he was the button, he had ace high. I don't know what his other card was. That board ran out with 10, 10, 9, 4, 8. And he got called by 8-6 suited on the river after it missed its flush draw from the flop, but ended up with a pair. So that wasn't particularly lucky. The next big one he lost, he squeezed King 9 offsuit out of the big blind. There was some dead money that called, and I didn't really see the whole hand. I just know he went bet, bet, bet. And this board I don't remember completely. All I know is it had 8, 9, 10 jack on it. And he got heroed all in by King 10. So second pair that guy had. And that hand was held by the original raiser who raised from early position. So he got a bit unlucky again, getting called so crazy light, but he also made his own luck by squeezing with this garbage pre-flop for just no fucking reason. So he's stuck pretty big, but now he's definitely going to adjust to his image. And I'm not expecting anything dramatic from him again until he has it. And the flop was 2, 3, 4, 2 diamonds. I don't have a diamond, but I'm loving this flop because I know he's going to try as hard as he can to talk himself into calling down light a lot. Well, not light, but just calling down with a pair, thinking that, you know, I can just have ace king, ace queen. So he check calls 70. And the turn is another diamond. It's a 9. He checks. And once again, I'm trying to go for 3 streets. This obviously isn't the turn card I had in mind, but under the circumstances, I think it's just an easy bet fold. And, I don't want to be scared here. I want to be trying to get the 3 streets because I think I can get it. If he check raises, I'm going to expect him to just have a flush and be going for value against any of the big overpairs that may or may not have a diamond. So I bet close to the pot size. I bet 210. He works it for a little while. He gave his cards a very subtle recheck, but it's not something he's going to be able to hide completely. And he calls. And I'm getting ready to fire another one on the river. I got a clean one. It's a 10. He checks one more time. The pot, I think, is 660. I bet 550. And I don't know how much I had back, but it was probably about another 550 or 580. I mean, it wasn't a lot. Maybe, probably just like a min raise. And he was thinking for a long time. And of course, I'm loving this because I did not think he was going to fold. And he rechecked his cards one last time, thought about it some more. And I was right. He didn't fold. He fucking shoved. Holy fucking goddamn it, piss shit, fucking shit. I folded instantly. So the table probably just thought that I was bluffing, but this is a snap fold because the only bluff he's ever going to have here is something with the ace of diamonds, and he's not going to run it this way. Because first of all, if he had ace-king with the ace of diamonds, he's probably just going to 4-bet. So let's just take that out of the mix. I doubt he would even have ace-jack offsuit. I mean, I don't think he's going to spew that hard pre-flop when the under-the-gun 1 3-bets him. So let's just take that out of the equation. And to even have ace-queen offsuit, I think is getting in there pretty light as well to just call a 3-bet. But whatever. Let's just say he could have that. And let's just say he has the ace of diamonds. He's not just check calling the flop and the turn with that, and then checking the river with ace high because, hello, what if I don't bet? What if he doesn't get the chance to run the bluff? Then he's just going to lose to hands like ace king at showdown or giving up, or just an overpair that doesn't try to get a 3rd street. He cannot be sure that I'm going to bet again. So if he's going to start bluffing with the ace of diamonds, he's going to start doing it when the flush card initially hits. And then you throw in that this raise is barely over a min raise. He knows I've seen him bluff off twice. We have no history together. This is not a bluff under these circumstances. I mean, yeah, in theory, anything is possible, but if in theory is all you got to go on, that's not such a good recipe to start making light calls that have basically no chance of being correct. So I really believe that the likeliest hand he had was pocket 10s, and he rivered a set. Because his pre-flop and flop and turn play would fit that like a glove. Just raise, call the 3-bet, and start check calling with your overpair. I don't think he's slow playing any flush he hits on the turn, including the nut flushes. So I think the reason he was debating what to do for so long was because he was trying to decide if it's worth it for him to raise. And I don't blame him for going for it. I mean, against me specifically, he's free-rolling himself as I would not have called him unless I had a flush, but he has no way of knowing that. What he does know is I don't have that many flushes. My nut flushes are ace-king, ace-queen, ace-jack, ace-10. I could have ace-5, which also would have flopped a wheel before turning the nut flush, but I don't necessarily 3-bet that from this spot when he opens under the gun. In fact, I actually probably would not have. I mean, that hand is good, but I don't think it's just a pure 3-bet every fucking spot you get it in. I mean, I saw him do some dumb things before, but this guy is not just some idiot. Or at least I don't think he is. Now, I do have a few other flushes. I mean, I'll have king-queen, king-jack, probably queen-jack. Probably not King 10 or Queen 10, maybe even not even Jack 10. I think I just fold those. I mean, I don't want to, but I'm probably going to. As all the other regs would just flat those from under the gun 1, of course, because let's try and make the nuts, because that's brilliant. So then that just leaves my range with overpairs, and that's going to be 24 combos of jacks through aces. So I really don't have that many flushes, and far less comparing to my value in bluff range, and I can only assume that's what he was calculating. It's what he should be calculating. He knows it's pretty thin to raise a set here, but he also knows his image, and since it was such a small amount for me to call at that point, I may just level myself and do it. So I like his raise. But I don't even think he had a set of 9s. I think he would check raise the turn with that also. So I just think his hand is exactly a set of 10s. So what started out as smooth sailing, I think I was up like 1,000. Now in the space of 10 minutes, I get kings and aces, both play for 3-bet pots, both hands go for 3 big streets, and both hands I lose. One to a factual better hand and one to a highly probable better hand. So now I'm down 1,000, and hey, this is what the game's all about. There's so many intangibles and skills you can develop and also need if you truly wish to not just win, but crush. But this one is the biggest. Can you take these types of gut punches and not be a little bitch about it and just grind on? And I did. I mean, look, some days I'm going to get a little more shaken up than others when these things happen, but this is something I've done better than an enormous percentage of the pool my entire playing career. When I first got into poker and was learning about it when I was like 18 and 19, and I was reading about what happens when people get stuck and how bad they play and all the above, I promised myself right then and there that if there's one thing I'm going to do better than everybody else, it's keeping my head on straight after taking shots like this. And just move on and not be the whipping boy. Just put it behind you and just continue to play well. That's what desire and dedication to what you're doing looks like. Poker is not a sport, in spite of some of these idiotic declarations I sometimes hear that it is. But let's not, come on, be serious. There's no physically demanding components involved whatsoever. So enough of calling this game that involves you sitting down in a chair the entire time a sport. In fact, poker players are so fucking lazy, they don't even stand up during the stand-up game anymore. They insist on keeping track sitting down. But aside from all that, as a poker player, I hustle. I run out every ground ball and fly ball if this were baseball, and I always get back on defense if this were basketball. So whatever you want to call it, I care enough about what I do to respect what my job is. Now, do I whine and complain when things are going bad? Yeah, of course I do. How could you not? But there's a difference between doing that off the table and being a baby, feeling sorry for yourself, and acting like the deck owes you a favor. I remember way back when I once had aces cracked twice in one orbit at 10-20 at the Bellagio. I don't remember any of what happened in the hands or what happened after. Just thinking, wow, that was pretty sick. But look, this is what we sign up for. And the reason I'm saying all this now is not just to beat my chest. I think you have to think and tell yourself these things because poker players don't have teammates. Your friends can try and make you feel better sometimes, but this is, at the end of the day, this is on us. There's not that much support. And every day, before every session, when I'm at home and when I'm driving in the casino, I am always reminding myself what a fucking badass I am. Because this game is going to make you feel lower than whale shit sometimes. Like you're the biggest puke piece of moronic fish sap shit. And I'm very hard on myself. I expect myself to play too perfectly too often. But to counter that, I do at least make sure to tell myself that I'm the man a lot too. Because there's going to be a lot of days and stretches where you'd rather suck a camel's cock than have to live with the way you just played a hand. I've seen a lot of faces come and go in Vegas, and look, I don't know why each individual person left after whatever time length they've been there. I mean, it could be for a ton of reasons. And Vegas is very transient. This is a very different place, and not everyone wants to live here. But a lot of people do want to make it here and really thought they were going to. And then one day they just disappear. And you know the case for a lot of them was they just couldn't hack it. Tons of players, they're just a flash in the pan. You know, they can God mode for 6 or 8 months or maybe even a year. And only have good results instead of outstanding. But by then they got used to it and figured that, you know, this is just how the game is always going to be. Totally oblivious and have no idea just how lucky they had been getting. But the reality always wins, and it always shatters the fantasy at some point. And when the math finally evens out and catches up to all their stupidity they'd been getting away with, it's going to get ugly and pretty painful. Those invisible numbers floating around the table, they know what you deserve, and sooner or later you're going to get it. So there were a bunch more hands from this game, but what's important is I stayed calm, ran pretty good, played pretty good, and ended up winning about what I won the day before when the whale managed to click fold at the optimal time each of the 2 times I caught the nuts against him. And if I didn't maintain the temperament, this day could have ended up a lot differently. So good for me. But anyway, on to the next day. Seen some full moons lately, and there were in fact some full moon hands, so let's talk about what they were. Things started out okay. It's up a little bit. And then I get aces from early position. I raised to 20. There's one call. And the small blind 3-bet to 85. That's always a nice feeling. And it was especially nice because it came from Bulgaria. Bulgaria was the guy I'd 3-bet the week before. When I was the button, he was cut off. I had king-jack off. He makes a very spewy call pre-flop with ace-10 offsuit. Flops an ace. And then just held on for 3 big barrels. Now, given the size he picked in this 3-bet pot, I don't think he has a huge hand. Because if he had a pretty big pair or ace-king, I think he's going to make it at least 100. So I 4-bet, but only to 200. The other guy folds, and Bulgaria calls. And the flop was king, ace, ace. Got 4 aces. The other day I backed into a royal flush, and now I flop 4 aces. Tough game. Wonder what he's got on me this time. So he checks, and I thought about this a little bit, and then, I checked back. I mean, I knew I'm checking. There's 2 clubs on the flop as well. The turn was a small spade, so now it's a 2-tone board. He checks again, and I came very close to checking as well. I mean, it's one of these flops where it's so good it's bad, because how am I supposed to win anything? Good problem to have, I guess. I ended up betting, though. I bet under 20% of the pot when I bet $80, and he immediately show folds the queen, jack of hearts. So, god damn it, now I wish I did check, since there's about a 9% chance of him rivering a straight, but whatever. If he has queen, jack of hearts, then that means he'll have king, queen suited, king, jack suited, so I'm not going to scrutinize this bet based on the result, but holy shit. I mean, he show folds me this hand like he's trying to say, the only reason you're making me fold is because this is all I have. Otherwise, I'm calling you with anything. And it's just fucking hilarious because he calls this 4-bet out of position with this fucking hand against me. His 3-bet is fine. He should 3-bet. But he should also use the same size he would if he had a real hand, like a really big hand, because I'd have 4-bet a lot of value here and plenty of bluffs. I just happen to have aces. But his pre-flop sizing tells are extremely glaring, so I was right to not want to go too ham with my 4-bet size. But either way, what is he doing calling this 4-bet? He basically just thinks, oh, well, this guy bluffs, so I'm just going to play every hand against him that is capable of looking attractive in any context. Okay. The only problem with that logic is it's suicide. Because like I said, so many of these regs who win are still, they're just whales with their pre-flop ranges. This is such an epic blunder he just made, and it's so obvious. If the flop comes queen or jack high, what's he going to do? He's just going to call down 3 barrels and just pray that I don't have it? How is that sensible? When you're playing no limit, you want to be in spots where you're guessing what to do as little as possible, because the more you have to guess, the more you're going to guess wrong. And there are always going to be spots where you're forced to guess no matter how well you play, so that means you need to completely wipe out all of the other scenarios where you have control over how often you have to guess. But holy shit. I mean, this is getting on both knees and just begging to get fucked. And while he wasn't lucky enough to crack the aces, at the same time he was lucky enough to where he didn't even feel tempted to put any more money in post-flop. But Bulgaria and I weren't done yet. He raises to 15 from the low jack, and I 3-bet to 50 in the cutoff with pocket sevens, and he calls, and the flop is ace 7-3 2 spades. Yes. He check calls 70. I should be going bigger though, because his range is either calling or folding. The turn was another ace. Yahtzee. Only now there's a chance for some bad rivers, but I'm loving life right now, because he is not going to fold to me. He check calls 210, and I probably should have gone bigger again. I mean, maybe I'm just too habituated, but in either case, I guess he would have about a pot-sized jam for the river, maybe more. But the river is another ace. I almost fainted. I mean, I'm just praying he checks so I can just check, even though I don't think I'm going to win. But instead, he goes all in. I immediately show fold my hand, and he shows me the 10-9 offsuit. No, just kidding. He had ace-queen. He had 4 aces. Ace-queen offsuit. No spades. So he was 1.62% to win after the flop. And he gets there. Holy shit. Well, I guess it would be weird if it never happens. And I feel bad shitting on this guy. I've said that before. You know, most people I don't feel bad at all, but this guy I like. He's nice. Although I guess I would be nice too if I could back into quads against a set, but either way. I mean, this is why I 3-bet in so many spots, because the regs, they just flat. Even when they know I 3-bet wide, they still will just call a massive part of their range and choose to corner themselves into checking and guessing. And I just don't understand. How does he not 4-bet? How does he not 4-bet? He has a fist-pumping 4-bets. I mean, I know ace-queen offsuit can be a bit of trouble and he doesn't have to do it every time he's in this spot, but every fucking hand is trouble. I am going to have to fold to his 4-bet a lot, and if I do, he just takes down the pot before the flop when he's out of position and doesn't have to pay any rake. But so many players, no matter what their level is, are so unwilling to 4-bet, even when they know I'm going to be wide. He was willing to call a 4-bet out of position with queen jack suited after I 4-bet from early position when he was a small blind. So this is one of the tightest configurations you can have, but he wasn't willing to be the aggressor himself when I had 3-bet him. People, if your strategy is just try and make the nuts as often as you can, instead of keeping the heat on everybody as often as you can while they try and make the nuts, you're not going to win anywhere close to what you can win. I mean, what does he think? I'm going to stop 3-betting him light because he hit me hard with the ace-10 offsuit last week? Absolutely not. I will stop 3-betting him wide when he starts playing against it with some type of strategy that involves at least one functional brain cell. Now look, pocket sevens isn't just some ultra loose 3-bet, it's just what I happen to have that hand. But against players who I don't really respect that much because of how they play pre-flop, and that's close to everybody, when they raise from a middle position, and even in a fair number of cases if they raise from an early position, if I think my hand is playable, I'm 3-betting. They make way too many mistakes pre and post flop to just be flatting their opening raise and letting other people in, which is something I used to do way too much of. And I started winning so much more once I stopped doing that and just 3-betting myself instead. And just getting it to heads up or deterring other people from 3-betting. I mean, just so many things work out. Now look, there's plenty of spots where you won't benefit as much from being aggressive as you will from calling, but it's not nearly as what most players seem to think, and it kind of just becomes a crutch. So then, a little while after that, this hand came up. This woman raised under the gun to 15. She's not very good, and I'm just going to 3-bet her with just about anything that I consider playable. I mean, just like what I talked about a second ago. And this time my hand happened to be King Jack of Spades, so I make it 50. 2 players call behind, and she folds. Flop was Queen 5 Deuce, 2 spades, so I got the second nut flush draw. I check. And whenever there's multiple cold callers, I would 3-bet. Or even if it's just in a single raise pot. When one of the middle position players bets with players left behind him, that's generally not a good thing. And that's what happened. He bet 80, so only half pot. The other player called. And the guy who bet 80 was a new face still, but if he flopped either a set of 5s or 2s, I mean, I would expect a random player to just bet a lot bigger here. And if the in-position player had a set, I would have expected him to raise. So I felt like it's okay for me to rep a big hand here, and I'll definitely have big hands when I 3-bet and then check raise this flop. You know, I'll have anywhere from kings, aces, ace-queen, maybe even king-queen. Nut flush draws, sets of 5s or 2s. So this is actually pretty much the weakest hand I'm ever check raising with. But I make it 380, and the guy who bet the 80 jams. Fuck. The other guy folds. It's only about 640 to me. Can't fold now. I call. Turn and river were both bricks. And he wins with the Queen 10 of spades. Yeah. So I was only a 60-40 dog, but very unfortunate flop here with him having a lower flush draw. Flopping a flush draw. But also hitting top pair. As I said, this is the weakest hand I would check raise the flop with, and it's definitely thin, but I think it's alright still. I mean, the problem is he could only have a small handful of flush draws that I'm going to be ahead of, maybe even less than a handful. And if he had the nut flush draw, then I'd really be in bad shape. So you might even say I was lucky to only be 60-40. But with no information on the guy, I mean, it's hard to say what he would do if he had a suited ace here and no pairs, just a nut flush draw. But for all I know, he might have bet a lot bigger on the flop, and if he did, then I would not have raised. I raised because the size just didn't seem all that strong. Now this, of course, was a very big assumption to make, and maybe a little too big in hindsight, but if he has Queen 10 suited, then he's going to have a lot of other suited queens with a middling kicker, and if he uses that same size, now I'm much more likely to get a fold, and I don't need him to fold that much to make some money with this raise. So, just kind of a perfect storm. I haven't made a move like this in a while. It wasn't entirely necessary, but I don't hate it too much. I mean, just go figure this is what I ran into. And then about 10 minutes later, this guy, after doubling up in like this, I don't know, $2,200 pot, he went broke. First, he got cold deck with a king high flush right into the nut flush. I didn't see the action, and then moments later, he punted the rest to someone else. This game eventually got pretty boring, so I table changed, but before I did, I played one more hand with Bulgaria. He opened late position of 15, the button called, and I 3-bet to 80 with ace-queen of diamonds, and he calls and we're heads up. So this is interesting because of the last 3 big pots we'd played together, I was in position each time. 2 of them were 3-bet pots, one of them was a 4-bet pot, but now he has position in a 3-bet pot. And I flopped pretty massive. It came Jack 10 deuce with 2 diamonds. So I got a combo draw. But given the way Bulgaria had been running versus me, we know there's no way I'm going to get there. So I really should just check and fold. But, I have to pretend I can still win. So I bet 110, and now he raises to 300. Yeah. Okay, I call. And the turn was exactly what I expected, a total brick. That's a 4. I check, and I'm expecting to see a huge bet and not really know what I want to do against it, but then he checked. I may have a way out of this yet. The river was nothing again, no shock there. I think it was like a 6 or a 3. But I just got ace high, and there's a chance I have the best hand. I mean, he could have king queen or king 9 of diamonds or 9-8 of diamonds, but it's also at least possible that he may only have like second pair or something along that way. Like he might just be clicking a button with queen 10 or ace 10 just because he doesn't want to be forced to call 3 barrels. So maybe he figures if he takes the initiative and raises, that could make his life a little easier. One thing is for sure, though, and that is he is not dedicated to winning this pot. And even though I may have some showdown value, I don't want to check and either lose to a small pair or, worse yet, have him bluff with a stupid pair that he doesn't realize he can just win with. I don't know how likely that is, but if there's any chance at all of that happening, then I'm not interested. And this pot has about $760 in it, and I am not just leaving it out there. So I thought about potting it, but I had about $1,100, and I decided I am not taking any chances here. He's caught me bluffing big before, and I figured if I jammed, maybe he's going to think I have it this time, but like I'm trying to rep a bluff, except I really am bluffing. And once I bet and call his raise, he's going to have to start giving me some credit. So I stuck it in, and he promptly folds. Don't know if I robbed him, but I do this fairly often in spots where I know I have a little or a lot of showdown value, but that there's still a chance I could be beat. But if I am, it's going to be to a hand that's pretty weak and probably doesn't seem interested at all in calling a huge bet. So then I table changed. I knew the game was a lot better at first, but then it got really boring. I did witness one bloodbath, though, between 2 others. I raised to 20 from early position with Jack 10 of diamonds. There was a call in middle position, and he's fishy. And the button looked very fishy, and he called. The button was deep. Middle position was not. And the flop was king 5-6 rainbow. I had a backdoor flush draw, so I didn't get too much. I checked. The middle position caller bet 25, and the next guy called. And I considered check raising because my hand turns pretty well, and it didn't seem so much like anyone really had anything here, but I just took the passive way and just folded and moved on. I think the turn was another 5. They both checked, and then the river was an ace, and they both checked. Now, the guy who bet the flop, he turned over 8-7 offsuit for 8 high. So he bet the flop with his open-ender and missed. And then the button turned over his hand, playing the board with 4 deuce offsuit. So he flopped a gut shot and missed as well. Ace on the river after goes check on the turn. And neither guy felt inclined to take a stab, so 8 high won this hand. Yeah, I knew check raising might be a good idea. Not only were they both not strong, I had both of them beat and then held. It was at this time I said to the table, like, wow, you guys, you have a lot of guts. And the best part is, both of these players are probably the types who can't figure out why they lose. So this had been another long session, and I table changed again back to the table I was on before, but the lineup had completely turned over. It was winding down. I was just going to finish one orbit, then play another and go. But with about 15 minutes left, we get a raise from under the gun 1, and I got 7s as next action, and I 3-bet to 60. The button cold called, and he was like this loose, passive, fishy player. The small blind cold called also, and he wasn't that much different from the button. We're all deep. Then the original raiser 4-bets to 220. And this is annoying because I don't want to do any of the 3 options I have, but I ended up calling. Neither of the other guys called, so the pot has 560. And the flop is 235, all diamonds. And I have a diamond. The open raiser checked. And I should have just bet right here because this seems like a give up. I mean, in theory, he's supposed to have some checks with hands I lose to that aren't going to fold, but the pool just doesn't seem to do that in these 4-bet pots. At least not this type of player, since I had just seen him call a raise from the small blind with Jack-8 offsuit. So this isn't someone who's been knocking himself senseless studying solvers. He's just throwing a 3/4 size 4-bet with all the dead money in there. But with me 3-betting and calling from my spot, he probably figures my range must look pretty strong, and you have to figure there's no way he had a diamond. Just completely whiffed the flop apart from having his wheel draw, and I guess he's just not interested in getting his throat cut any further. So I should not have given him a free look at the turn, but I was in the game for 2,500. I'm at the end of a long day, and, I was a little weary about playing a huge pot at the end of the day with a hand as marginal as this one. I really didn't want to get jammed on, but the truth is, if this hand is good enough to check raise, and he'll probably just bet. But I check, and the turn was a queen, no diamond, and he checks again. All right, not going to fuck this up twice in a row. So now I bet 220. And he sighs, and he hems, and he haws, and he folds. Probably just had ace-king with no diamonds. So it started with me thinking I probably have to set mine, ended up with me just holding up with the best hand. And people tend not to 4-bet ace-king even as often as they should, so I can understand my initial passivity, but I think if this happened a couple hours earlier, I would have just bet the flop. So maybe this is all sort of like being a pitcher who's running out of gas. It's time for me to get out of the game. It's just not as easy to be as sharp at the end of a long session, most of which you've been losing. But the final hand of the day, wow, was this a doozy. I got aces in the cutoff. Folds over, I raise to 20. Button 3-bets to 65, and one of the loose passive fish I mentioned earlier cold calls, and as I often do, I 4-bet a little too small of a size with aces because I get so nervous that they're going to fold because it's such a disaster when they do. But you know something? If it's a disaster, maybe sometimes you just have to live with that, and because it's in the name of using the right size. So I can go at least 250 here comfortably, especially with all 3 of us being deep. But I settled on 215. The button called, and we're heads up with $500 in the pot. And I was already thinking of checking the flop for deception. Then the flop came queen, queen, 8, rainbow. So that's a bit imposing. The button was only in the game about 15 minutes, so I didn't have any info on him yet. He did say nice hand a couple times when people won a hand without going to showdown. So that just kind of made him seem like a recreational player. Just wants to have a good time, but is going to try to win. You figure he must have some know-how, but probably nothing too advanced. Can't really count on getting 3 streets anymore, so I check. Let's just see what he does. He checks, and I'm happy about that. I don't think the pool would be checking back here if they were to have flopped the world here. And the turn was not perfect, but I'll take it. It was a jack. I bet 200. He works it for a little bit, and he calls. And the river was another jack. Yeesh. So the board has double-paired queens and jacks, and what do I do now? I mean, do I bet tiny and try to get called by ace-high, or do I check and hopefully let him bluff with pocket tens or pocket nines, or maybe king 10 or 10-9 if he is in fact 3-betting that wide pre-flop, which, let's face it, he probably isn't. This is a tough decision because if I bet, it's kind of hard for me to be bluffing. I can have either quad queens or quad jacks, or ace queen or ace jack, or going a bit more razor thin with aces or kings. Even though he personally put $415 into this pot, does he really want to call another bet just to maybe get that back? So if I bet, I'd got to go small. I got to go maybe 150 into 900. I don't really know how much more you can push it than that. And if he has a counterfeited pocket pair, he's just going to fold. So I think once I'm in this spot, it's pretty hard for me to get value by betting, but that doesn't mean he's going to bluff either. But I checked, just hoping for the best. Definitely leaning towards call if he bet, but he checked, and I won. I don't know if he only had ace-king, or if maybe he did have tens and got counterfeited into having nothing and just decided not to go for it. And if that's the case, nothing surprising there, since the 2-5 pool notoriously underbluffs. So that hand certainly didn't go as great as it could have, but alright, whatever. It got me out of the hole. I started out on a little hot streak, but after my full house lost to running quads and then the king-jack flush draw situation that blew up in my face, I was down pretty much the whole day. Figured I was going to take a loss, but ended up a slight winner. But that's poker, people. It's good to the last drop. But alright, that'll wrap up this week's hand histories. People haven't been overly stupid lately. I mean, only a few stories here and there. So maybe I'm growing on people. Or maybe I'm just running good with behavior. Either way, I might have to reach into the archive soon with some more throwback tales of dumb fuckery. I'll think more about that this week. We'll see you next time.